Jacque Vaughn, fired by the Brooklyn Nets. And that's the second coach of the Eastern Conference to be fired this season. Doc Rivers taking over for Adrian Griffin. Different type of team, of course, but the Brooklyn Nets have been struggling this year to
just lost mildly. By 50 last game before the All-Star break.
A little disappointing.
I'm going to say, Devon, if you were going to
back-to-back against Boston,
if you were going to start trying to tamper, getting the coach fired is step one. So good job. I'm going to credit you for this one.
You know,
I had my plant that seed. You know,
I had my issues with Jacque Vaughn from afar, and I spoke to Sean Marks. So everybody wants me to speak to one person. I'm speaking to another person, saying, "Hey, this offense sucks. Figure it out." Australian general manager, figure it out. But Jacque Vaughn fired.
Oh, no love for the Aussies, huh?
Well, you know. Listen,
so how does Mikal feel about Kevin?
I don't know. Don't know. It's not. It's not.
I love
business.
the Aussies, other than the guy who used to be here. By the way,
had
a great trip to Australia last summer.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Actually, this hoodie is from Australia.
On brand, right
there, buddy.
All right, what do you make of it?
Your tampering is working. Number one.
There you go.
Number two, I would say, I'm not trying to get you in trouble or anything, Devon, but I would say
I'm just listening.
If we are seeing a coach get fired and the immediate reporting is that Spencer Dinwiddie now gone, but Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, and other veterans on the Nets are unhappy with where things are, I would say that that's a sign that things are, from the Nets' perspective, trending in the wrong direction. From the Sixers' perspective, they're trending in the right direction because, as Derek said, this is the first step toward, okay, maybe Mikal Bridges could become available at some point.
My pushback to that is from the Thunder perspective, it is trending in the right direction. But that's just my doomer nature.
Listen, man, the Thunder are this big boogie team for everyone. We've been given no indication that Presti wants to make an all-in move basically ever. What's the last push chips in move
but
that they
made?
But
that might just be because he's a smart GM who knows that there are only ones worth pouncing for and who keeps it under wraps.
How long has he had the job? He's been there like
forever.
Over 15 years.
I think it makes sense for him because, first of all, not only do they have like $1 billion first-round picks to trade, they have max cap space they have too. It makes sense to let your players develop and see what you have before you go in for that one big move. It was just a doomer joke.
I think Sam Presti is a very smart guy. That goes without saying. You look at the success they've had in a market that it should be very difficult for them to have success relative to other teams. All I'm saying is I've been given no indication based on his track record that he's just going to unload the clip for a guy. Like, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the opportunity presents itself, and
the last time he did it was for Paul George.
George.
Yeah.
And that was Russell Westbrook stumping pretty hard to get him specific. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I think it's important that, at least for the Sixers, that Brooklyn is, I'd say, teetering on the edge of this could go either way. I know we've said on the show, and it's been reported, they're a team that wants to be in the mix for example, Donovan Mitchell, and if they could pair him with Mikal in New York, where Donovan wants to play, they would like to do that. I continue to think that's the path for an organization that is going to put a ceiling on itself and not get to where they were hoping to get to by having KD and Kyrie and James and all them. But door looks like it's at least cracking open for the Sixers, and this is one of many potential opportunities where we've been talking about it a lot, where they're going to get to June and they're going to look around. If Kevin Ollie comes in, and not to say that you base your future decisions on how an interim head coach does over 20 whatever games, 30 games, but if Kevin Ollie comes in and the offense is still bad and they're losing and kind of directionless, Brooklyn is primed for some sort of big move this summer. The direction they go in, hard to say right now, but Sean Marks, I think, is going to be feeling the heat a little bit. I'd say that.
Yeah, one way or the other, they're going to have some big decisions to make. Not only, number one, you just fired your coach. It's either going to be Kevin Ollie did so great with these 28 games remaining, or just the placeholder, as we talked about earlier with Darius Bazley, where they're going to make a move to bring in a a much better head coach because they probably can't, after having Jacque Vaughn for what he did, probably can't follow that up with Kevin Ollie as your guy going forward. You're going to have to probably make a pretty good splash there to bring someone else in. So that's one. And then there's the talent on the floor. The talent on the floor, if they don't get things together here in these 28 games under Kevin Ollie, they are right now 2.5 games back of the 10th spot for the play-in behind the Atlanta Hawks. They don't want to be a play-in team. They want to be a playoff team like they were last season where they locked in that 6th seed. And so what's going to happen to Donovan Mitchell piece? If they can't land someone like Donovan Mitchell or DeJounte Murray.
And also, how do they land a guy like that? Like, what?
Right.
Are they just getting rid of all the Phoenix stuff for?
Right. How do they do it? Because they're in a really tricky spot. So the other big piece of that is, do they really consider listening for the offers for Mikal to start over, basically, because they're looking at it as a team right now where they need to rebuild. If they don't land one of those other top to go with Kale, then they're going to have to figure something out because they're going to have to make a big decision this summer. That Brooklyn fan base right now is not happy, and many of them wanted Jacque Vaughn fired a long time ago. And it's not just Spencer Dinwiddie who's already gone or the report saying that Kale has shared his thoughts. Cam Thomas, for say what you want about him as a scorer, ticked off that he was coming off the bench because he felt like, I can't. What else do you want me to do? Well, play some
pass
defense,
the ball, maybe
pass the basketball. But that's it's not just
he is
those
a bucket,
two.
But that is all he is.
Yes, it's not just those two that you would hear or at least get the sense that they were frustrated with that Brooklyn net situation. So we'll see what happens. But during these 28 games to wrap up the season, but it just wasn't a good situation. And watching them as much as I did, I didn't think Jacque Vaughn did a great job. But I also know that it cannot be just the head coach anymore. Now the finger pointing is going to start at the top because Sean Marks has been there. Wasn't his fault, kind of a little bit of his fault, but not his fault with how things played out with Durant, Irving, and Harden. But it's not the coaches anymore because he's putting the players on the floor also. Finger pointing is going to start there too, and that's where the owner is going to have to step in, Joe Tsai.
Yeah. And look, I just think this is another example of, Daryl Morey made a bet at the trade deadline that something will happen. Will it end up being Bridges? We don't know. But this is just showing that things will change. Teams will be forced into making decisions that maybe they didn't want to make at the deadline. And Daryl felt like keeping his first-round picks, which could grow to as many as 5 that he can trade in the summer, keeping them in his back pocket was worthwhile because something will happen. Do I know if Mikal will become available? No. Do I know if that happens if the Sixers have the best offer? No. But I think Daryl's argument will be that something will happen and they can pounce, and he better be right because there's like we mentioned a bunch, there's a small window of time where they either have cap space or stuff to trade while still having a chance to really make a run here. But I do think this is an example that he is making that bet.
And at the very least, doing his job of, as we saw from those reports about LeBron James and the 3 Phoenix Suns player, you make the phone call. You at least
he will make a phone call.
You make the phone call
in
to find out if, in fact, he is available, and that's what you leave this type of cap space open for, and the treasure chest of picks that you have. In no particular order, he's probably in that order of available players that you would at least make the phone call for, and maybe give up those picks for.
Oh, I mean, I would almost guarantee that
he's probably on the phone
that
right
already
freaking now.
As soon as Jacque Vaughn was fired, that was like hey, so do you want to revisit this in June, perhaps on draft night? I think that's the wheels are probably already in motion there, if I had to guess.
Well, hey, we'll see what happens.
We all silly like the mayor.